Are you feeling like your marriage is falling apart, but unsure if it's just a rough patch or the beginning of the end? Or are you ignoring the warning signs in your marriage, thinking it's just a bump in the road? Well, here's what I know, my friend. It's time that we've got to face the honest truth. We've got to really look in the mirror and face the truth and ask those hard questions. So in this episode that you're watching, I'll be sharing with you this, what I've called 5 signs that your marriage may be headed for a disaster and what you can do about it. Now, to help you with that, I've entitled this episode or this show, How to Know If Your Marriage is in Trouble. Now, in this video, I'll be talking about these 5 signs. Constant argument as one sign. Another sign, constant complaining. Another sign, lack of communication. Another sign, a lack of intimacy. And the last sign I'll share is the lack of trust. Now, these are 5 high warning signs. It's where the lights are flashing, right? It's a neon lights are flashing and it's saying danger, warning, something's about to happen. And maybe you're not listening, or maybe you're listening, but you feel like you don't know what else to do. Maybe it's a fight, flight, freeze moment and you're freezing, you're in shock. Maybe you're having these moments of unbelief. You can't believe your marriage is at this place. Maybe it's just having a hard time to come to grips, to terms with this possibility, and you just don't know what else to do. Now, if you're hearing me for the first time and is wondering, who am I to be speaking on topics like this? Let me just say, I'm Kingsley Grant, and I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified relationship coach, having counseled and coached hundreds of couples over the past several years and having been married for more than 3 decades. I think I'm more than qualified, what would you say, to talk about topics like this one, and to do so with confidence. And I hope you'll come to that realization or agree, even though that's not my goal, but I just wanted to share that with you as well. Let me also recommend that you listen to my podcast at happiermarriagesecrets.com/podcast. You'll be able to access my podcast and you'll find topics like this one that I've covered on a more lengthy way there as well. And you can also access the blogs that's on that website. Now, at the end of this video, I'll share with you how to get a free ebook on the topic of 5 secrets to your happier marriage, the roadmap to the marriage you've always wanted and so deserve. Now, let's dive now then into today's topic, how to know if your marriage is in trouble. How do you know that? What are the signs that you want to look for? And here's what I believe, that these signs are critical. They are the repeating signs. There are other signs, I'm sure, but these one I believe are the top signs, I would say, that you need to look for. And if you're experiencing them, the chance is your marriage is in trouble and you really want to take notice, get some help, get some outside help. You say, Kingsley, I've done that. We have done that. And there's nothing else. Nothing has changed. You know, I feel your pain. I empathize with you. And I'm sorry that you're going through this moment, especially if you feel like your partner, your spouse is not invested enough and want to do anything about changing the trajectory of the marriage. It's like you've cried, you've prayed, you've pleaded, and nothing has changed. And so, you know, I empathize with that. But here are what I believe the 5 signs you want to look for. Now, these signs does not mean that your marriage is totally over. You know, I believe in reconciliation. I believe in recovery. I believe that marriages can be saved. One of my goals, that I'm passionate is make marriages happier again. And that's why I've done the podcast. That's why I'm giving you the ebook. That's why I'm creating some other materials, some, what I call products and things of value for you, because I believe that marriages can be saved no matter what state it might be in, what stage it might be in. We just don't give up unless one person is already exited the marriage. And what can you do? But I believe that you can also make some changes yourself. If you really follow some things I talked about in my podcast, I believe you can save your marriage even on your own. But that's another story for another time. Any questions you may have, you can just comment below and let me know what your thoughts about what I've just said. Now, what's the first sign that I want to point out? Now, these are not in any order in particular, but this, I believe, are 5 signs. The first one is constant arguing and fighting. Constant arguing and fighting. Now, and here's what I find is fighting almost about, the same things over and over again. Because as a couple, you're going to have moments of arguing and fighting, but you're going to resolve those in a healthy marriage. And basically, studies have shown that couples who are able to fight fairly, and I use the word fight here because it's not like a contradiction, right? But they're able to have arguments and solve them and work through them in a very constructive manner, have healthier, stronger, and longer lasting marriages. So arguments are not the issue. It's when you have the same things over and over again. You're talking about the same things, hear the very, day 1, day 10, day 50, and the same thing over and over again. It's almost like this endless reruns of the same argument. And there seems to be no resolution. You've tried different things. There's no resolution. And what this tells me is that there is a disconnect. There's something going on undercurrent in the marriage where that continues to be the play. So when that is being experienced, that is a major sign that your marriage is possibly in trouble because there's something more that's happening below the surface. The second sign is where there's constant complaints and criticism, big and small, where everything is being criticized. You do one thing, it's criticized. It's almost like you can never do anything right. It's this constant, pointing out everything that's wrong, right? It's almost like a microscopic looking for things to argue about or criticize or complain about. It could be the laundry, it could be the food, it could be leaving a cup on the sink and not in the dishwasher, or just, picking on small things. And when you find that it's one of the spouse, one of you, maybe you or your husband or your wife is just picking, and is that dripping sound that's constantly coming at you. When that is happening, both small and big, criticizing everything you say, you can't say anything right, you can't do anything right. It's always being brought under the magnifying glass. That's a problem. There's something else that's eating away at the marriage. And when there's constant complaints and criticism, that's a major sign to look at for as well. Number 3, lack of communication. It's where, when I'm talking about this, it's not that you're not talking, but it's almost like an unwillingness to listen and try to understand and empathize with each other. Now, it's very important to feel like you're being understood. Your partner is listening to you and trying to his or her best to understand you and empathize. I cover these topics as well in my podcast, and that's why I want to encourage you to listen to my podcast, because you will find that I cover at length a number of these topics. Also, you may want to watch some of the videos I've done, because I've covered these topics to some degree in my videos as well. But lack of communication is a very big one, right? When you feel like, I've heard this so many times from couples who come into our counseling. Let's say, what is our biggest problem? I would say 95% of the couples who come in for counseling start out with, when I ask, what is the issue? They'll say, we just don't communicate. We just don't communicate. We just don't talk to each other. And we just constantly disrespect and interrupt. And that is what is happening in their communication. When you find a breakdown in communication where listening is not happening as it should, active listening, reflective listening, that is a sure sign that the marriage is experiencing a breakdown and something is about to happen. Number 4, lack of intimacy, emotional connection. I talk about that in my podcast, episode 33, about this idea of intimacy, emotional intimacy, and emotional safety. And that is so critical, right? Is where you're sending a message to your partner that this is a safe space and you want them to share with you and be vulnerable. And when there's a lack of intimacy and emotional connection that's taking place, not just physical, right? Because that's important. But when you're not emotionally connected, you feel disconnected from each other, that's also a sign that your marriage is really on a slippery slope. Because this is so critical for marriages, that you feel intimately and emotionally connected with your partner. This is very big. And I know most times, as a wife, you are the one who probably will sense this much quicker and easier, because you're more emotionally inclined to detect that than sometimes we as husbands in our relationship. Now, before I share with you the fifth way, so we talked about now 5 ways. Is the first one was constant arguing and fighting. Second one, constant complaints and criticism. Third one, lack of communication. The fourth one, lack of intimacy and emotional connection. And before I share with you the fifth one, the fifth sign that your marriage is in trouble, I want you to do 3 quick things. And that is, number 1, smash the subscribe button below. Number 2, hit the like button. And number 3, click on the notification bell so you'll be notified of all new releases of this channel and you don't want to miss what's ahead. So the fifth sign is lack of trust. Lack of trust. Now, this is a big one in the relationship. When there's trust is gone, when I tell my couples or a spouse that when trust is no longer there, you don't have a relationship. You really don't have a relationship when trust is gone, when trust is missing. It's very hard to build a relationship because that's a very foundational piece and fundamental for a happier, solid, any kind of marriage is really to really be lasting and to be healthy. A lack of trust will lead to emotional instability within the relationship, right? You may not feel safe around your partner. There's always a watching to see and a high alertness, this high anxiety in the relationship because trust is not there and you just don't know what's going on. And especially if there's infidelity. But any kind of trust issue, it could be a violation of the finances, it could be an addiction, and there's a trust issue that's come up, whatever it looks like, it really puts the marriage in a very unstable place, right? There's instability and insecurity. And so this is a big issue within a relationship. And when you're experiencing this is a big sign your marriage could be on its way to a disaster. Now, my friend, you say, what can I do? Well, I mentioned earlier, I hope you're a person of prayer. I would encourage you to pray and entrust this in God's hand. Let God work on it. And you kind of take your hands off and trust God, commit to God. Also, practice self-care. Practice self-care. It's essential that you practice self-care. Episode 31 of my podcast is one I want you to listen to because we talk a lot about self-care, how to do that as an individual in a relationship. So self-care, prayer, also seek an outside help, a good professional help, not just anybody per se. Seek somebody who you have been highly recommended that you could go to and talk to. Go by yourself if you need to, because you need that to encourage and empower yourself as well. So these are some things I would recommend that you do as you continue to try to work on your marriage. And so here are the 5 signs again that I mentioned. Number 1, constant arguing and fighting. Number 2, constant complaints and criticism. Number 3, lack of communication. Number 4, lack of intimacy and emotional connection. And number 5, lack of trust. I would love to hear from you. Which of these 5 are you experiencing? Any of these 5? And would you have anything to add to what I've just said? And what was the most helpful thing that stood out to you as you listened today? Drop a comment right below, right? Let me hear from you. I'd love to communicate with you, dialogue with you. And if you need to, send me an email, which you can also access. I'll leave the link inside the comments below. So the link to my podcast will be right below. And now here is how, because you've listened to the end, here's how you can get your free ebook. Remember now to smash that subscribe button, click that like button, and also click on that notification bell so you'll be notified of all the future podcasts that are coming out, right? I look forward to that. And go and listen to the podcast at happiermarriagesecrets.com. All the links will be provided also below. So click on those and access them there. The ebook is 5 Secrets to Your Happier Marriage, the roadmap to the marriage you've always wanted and so deserve. The link is at kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. kingsleygrant.com/HMS ebook. And so the link will be below. You can click on that and have access to that. It's free. It's another value that I want to provide for you. Why? So we can continue to make marriages happier again. So let's go and do that. And let me hear from you. And so thank you for listening and watching and being with me today. God bless you. And I'll see you on the next video. God bless.